Nothing contained in this videocast is intended to encourage the use of illegal substances. This videocast represents only the opinions of the host and their guests and should not be taken as medical or legal advice. In no way does listening, reading, corresponding, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient or legal relationship. The content here is intended to share thoughts and opinions and foster constructive discussion. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions concerning cannabis. The views expressed by hosts and guests on this videocast are not necessarily the views of Global Cannabis Times or any other company with which the hosts and guests are associated.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Going Global, a Global Cannabis Times video podcast that seeks to act as the eyes and ears on the ground in emerging international cannabis industry. I am your host, Tony Smith. I'm of Counsel for Zuber, Lawler law firm here in Arkansas, and I'm here with Eddie Armstrong. Eddie is the CEO and chairman of the Cannabis Capital Group. Eddie brings a deep understanding and expertise and intimate knowledge of the cannabis industry sector. He is the former minority leader of the Arkansas House of Representatives. He has been at the forefront of the fight to expand the availability of cannabis, and he has recently served as the campaign chairman for the Arkansas Adult Cannabis Initiative in 2022. Prior to his career as a legislator, Eddie served as the special assistant to North Little Rock, Arkansas, Patrick Mayor Henry Hayes, providing a visible link between elected officials and the public. He's acted as a liaison between constituents, city departments, and committees. He was responsible for a series of research and special projects carried out on behalf of the city government and was granted the authority to act on the mayor's behalf on a number of occasions. He's also enjoyed success in the private sector as manager for state government and the affairs for Tyson Foods. He was responsible for monitoring all the state legislative and regulatory matters across 18 states, affecting all areas of business of that Fortune 500 company. He was active in lobbying on behalf of the company at both the state and national levels. While at Tyson, he also developed and executed a number of regional outreach programs, raising awareness about the issue of hunger and promoting local food bank initiatives. Eddie has also cultivated extensive links within the medical and clinical science communities, having served as a business development officer for Pathology Partners Laboratory and as a growth development strategy principal for Phoenix Labs. Eddie has distinguished himself in the public eye on numerous occasions. He's recognized both for his political and business leadership, as well as his philanthropic endeavors. He's been profiled in a number of regional and national publications, including the Arkansas Business Journal's 2005 edition of 40 Under 40, Ebony's 2007 list of 30 on the Rise, and About You's Powerful Men for 2015. At Cannabis Capital Group, Eddie has worked with clients on the nitty-gritty details of licensing applications and compliance. He has a track record of success, having led the development of the highest rated cultivation license applications in the state of Arkansas. Eddie's expertise as a communicator makes him a forceful advocate for clients and for the industry. His vast political and business network spans numerous states. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, and it is my pleasure to be here with Eddie Armstrong today, talking about the Arkansas cannabis market. So Eddie, to get started, can you just give us a broad overview of the Arkansas cannabis market and what the state looks like currently?
Thank you so much, Tony, for a mouthful of words. But I appreciate you for trying to hit on some of that. It's not as important as where we are in the state of cannabis right now in Arkansas. And just, grateful for Zuber and this opportunity to speak with you guys today. The state of, cannabis in the industry in Arkansas is really fluid. What we just witnessed in 2022 with the non-passage of the adult recreational cannabis initiative was quite an eye-opener, but I think that lends towards some really unique opportunities for us moving forward. As you know, each state has its own set of restrictions and regulatory parameters. Arkansas is indeed a medical state. With a total market size of 8 cultivators and 37 dispensaries, and about 90,000 medical patients currently on the roster through the Arkansas State Department of Health. Each of those states vary as it relates to the financial side of things. Arkansas is a very highly gainful state with bunches of opportunities moving forward. It's averaging right now around $220 million in annual sales revenue, with roughly 40 to 50,000 pounds of cannabis being sold on an annual basis. As you currently maybe don't know out there for the listeners, there are many unique opportunities in such a highly regulated and tight-knit state like Arkansas. where the 8 cultivators and 37 dispensaries, you have a handful of them that are looking to either sell or cash out. They're looking to vertically integrate or looking to go towards mergers and acquisitions with those that may not be in the state. Most of those licenses are owned by and operated by in-state license holders, which brings forth some unique opportunities for the future. Many of these owners of licenses have career in other spaces. They're former farmers, airplane pilots, police officers, liquor and beverage store owners, retail owners that have gotten a golden ticket, so to speak, with the cannabis license, and now figuring out that there are a lot of rules, regulations, and distinctive IP and SOP standards that are required that many of these owners don't necessarily have the bandwidth for. I think you're seeing some tremendous growth right now in Arkansas by the few multi-state operators here. Revolution, as you all know, is based out of Illinois, and Good Day Farms, which is a multi-state operator here in the Southeastern Conference, and they have licenses in Missouri, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, and a handful of other states. But I think you're going to start to see more of those that currently own licenses look for expertise in the operation and processing side of things, as well as those that really know how to improve the bottom lines for some of these businesses that are out here with licenses that aren't doing as strong as they maybe predicted when they did get their licenses back in 2018. I'd like to note that when medical cannabis did come online and the first products were sold in March of 2019, in that short calendar year, the state of Arkansas saw revenues of about $256 million. And just as of last year, 2022, in the calendar year from June to June in the fiscal year, you saw sales in around $276 to $280 million. So while this is a highly regulated and tight-knit market, it is a highly profitable market with, I think, a tremendous upside for those that are looking to try and, get under the tent here in a place like Arkansas or the southern region for that matter.
Are there any products for medical use currently that are not allowed in Arkansas? I know there are a lot of different, you've got flour, you've got oils, you've got edibles. Are there anything that currently that are restricted? And if they have they been lightened up over the course of this life cycle of the medical marijuana experience here in Arkansas?
Well, because of some of the, I think, market structural issues, it's not as easy to get into a state like Arkansas or in this region. But the products that you have seen come into the state by way of Revolution or Burner, and there are opportunities there with their strands coming into the state, you're seeing a small amount of multi-state operators bring their brands into the state of Arkansas. But this is a real local first type of state, where the customers or the patients really prefer to try and galvanize products that have been grown and or produced in state by the 8 growers that are currently in the marketplace. But you're seeing a good infringement of a few out of state brands that are making their way into the state. And I think there are going to be more opportunities as we look towards the future of growing our medical market and our patient count for new brands to make their way into the state, either through the strand and seed to sell process. But right now you have just a handful, not over 6, maybe less than half a dozen real key brands that are in the state right now. And I anticipate more to come in the future.
But none of those product classes are prohibited. The edibles are allowed, oils are allowed, vapes are allowed, all of that is allowed, correct?
Correct. Trim, crude oils, concentrate, vape oils, edibles, topicals are still allowed. Flour, of course, and you're just seeing some unique opportunities for those brands to start to make their way into Arkansas.
Are you seeing any trends regarding those product classes where one, maybe a flour obviously is the most widely recognized of all of these? Are the edibles or the oils trending up in acceptance and adoption?
Yes, and I think that it's primarily around the flour aspect. Lots of people, patients especially, want their flour, but you're seeing a real uptick in things like your vape cartridges and your concentrates and some of your topicals that are making their way into the state and are selling at a real high price point or a decent price point. And customers are starting to create real brand loyalty around those. I find it interesting that if the package looks good, and it's taken the right amount of time to be shiny or professionally developed, that you'll have customers or patients buying that and relying more on that as opposed to the true essence of the product and what it can do for the patient. And I think that may be an opportunity, not a problem, for more education and awareness to come to the medical market for patients that are really looking for a CBD, CBG, CBN, THC-based product or less THC derived product that really speaks to the need of the patient's ailments, from PTSD to sleep apnea, et cetera. So I think the future's bright. Arkansas, with its tightly confined laws and regulations around how we advertise and or specify what products are good to patients, is something that I think you'll start to be loosened in the coming months through the legislative process, so that more advertising can exist. Patients can learn more through education about these products. And then you'll start to see, I think, more patients buying either from, the big MSOs that already have products on the shelf, or the local brands that are doing a real strong job at trying to make certain that there is some awareness and education about the products that best suit the needs of any one patient.
You spoke a little bit about packaging and advertising there. Are there any restrictions unique to the state that companies looking to get into the state would want to know about?
Well, sure. Each state, as I mentioned, differs in how they, regulate in this market and in the industry right now. And packaging, there are some really strong restrictions on how it can be packaged and child-proof for children. You cannot advertise in any way that would, be directed towards children. You're seeing a lot of edibles pop up in the black market right now, from everything from a bag of Doritos or your gummy bears, that can be misleading. And if you get that in a household and the child gets a hold of it, then we have a problem. But in Arkansas, there are some real strong parameters in which how you package and deliver what is to eventually get to the retail side of things before the consumer gets it. So I think that those parameters will continue to persist and be enforced through the Arkansas ABC and governed through the Medical Marijuana Commission. And rightfully so. We would want that. You don't want this in the hands of children. You want to make certain that it's properly packaged and properly vetted and properly tested before it ever gets to the consumer.
So they're not able to advertise. How are the companies that are doing well getting their message out? What are they doing to establish brand awareness and establish a customer base?
I think, this industry, as the listeners well know, it's a very organic industry still. And it's, it's a real relationship driven industry. For the 8 cultivators and the 37 dispensaries, it's like their own big family. And you see a lot of cross collaboration and even some vertically integrated companies like Good Day Farms that own a multitude or a percentage of dispensaries in our state right now. And they have been able to, through pricing and through, the opportunities to stay repeatedly in front of their customer base as they continue to come in with what the new price point is or the sale of the week is, to ensure that patients are buying their products. And I think that bodes for those that are vertically integrated, both owning a cultivation facility and a dispensary, that they've been able to galvanize a large proportion of this 90,000 patient population that we have right now in the market. I think what advertising will be able to hopefully do is improve the number of patients we have in the short term, as we're looking to hopefully readdress adult use cannabis in 2024 and maybe get that on the ballot again.
You mentioned multi-state operators. Are there any types of restrictions against out-of-state operators needing to have at least a percentage of the company owned locally?
Yeah, well, that was derived in the initial amendment, and that was then addressed again here in 2022, that the majority of ownership should exist with those citizens that live in any one state. And there was an attempt this time around with the Adult Use Cannabis Initiative Amendment to allow for out-of-state owners to only own up to 15% of any one license, but they can own up to 18 licenses. I don't think that was looked upon favorably by some of the true believers or the patient population advocates. So now in lies the opportunity to go back to the drawing board to look at what the actual ownership structure looks like for in-state residents to galvanize on the opportunity to gain a license versus out-of-state owners having a certain percentage. But I think that will still be something that is welcomed. As you all know, this is a very cash-intense business, and the resources to do that will have to come from maybe some out-of-state that have a little bit more bandwidth to take on the task of not only applying for a license, but then getting your operations up and to the point that you're able to compete in such a tight-knit market.
Yeah, you mentioned that the recreational initiative failed in 2022. Are there any other reasons besides what you just cited that maybe led to the failure instead of, and that was a surprise. You thought that it would do much better than it actually did. Speak to that and some of the problems that with the recent initiative. Go ahead.
Sure. I think about the fact that across the United States right now, well over 80% of the general public says, if you're polling this, that, recreational or cannabis should be legalized across the board in the United States. And in Arkansas, starting in 2021, when polls were taken and people were asked about legalization efforts here, many people spoke up, and over 60% of the state's population that was polled said that they thought that it should be legal here. I think that some of the things on the regulatory limitations and the restrictiveness made it a little bit of a tough challenge. And then there was some structural issues with supply and product and the sales prices, so there was a choke point, so to speak. And then there were some technology limitations there that I think also provided some roadblocks. But when you start to think about the future, some of those restrictions on the horizontal and vertical integration and having no restrictions there and being able to open up the market a little bit more, you will hopefully see this come back in a robust way because the people indeed do want it. Some of the questions that came up that were really met with a hard no vote, so to speak, were around expungement and home grow. Many people in Arkansas, which is coined the natural state, really prefer to grow their own cannabis, a lot like being able to brew your own beverages at home, as you're seeing with microbreweries now. However, that wasn't addressed in this initial initiative and amendment. And we saw that, the people of Arkansas spoke. While they indeed do want to see adult use cannabis come to Arkansas, they would like to see it in a more open way. If we don't have home grow, can the size of the grow facilities that are cultivating these products actually be bigger? The number of stores that we're going to hopefully provide in the state, can it reach more customers and patients? And so there are many talks I know that are going on right now to try and address some of those issues that were stopgaps this time around. And as I mentioned earlier, hopefully you'll see this come back in a meaningful way. And then last but not least, decriminalization versus expungement. There were a lot of young adults and true patients that wanted to see expungement happen retroactively. And that's just a bit much more of a bigger apple to bite when you're dealing with southern states that are GOP led. While the tax revenue is rich and good, some of the regulatory parameters of retroactively expunging records immediately aren't looked upon as favorably. So you can get something or you can get nothing. And typically when you try to get everything at once, you end up getting nothing. And so I think we saw that. So addressing that and finding some way to compromise in order to make certain that, the citizens do indeed see recreational cannabis come to a state like Arkansas is where we are right now.
You mentioned horizontal and vertical integration. Horizontal being you can only own one piece of the supply chain. Vertical meaning you have to own all parts of the supply chain. Are there any parameters like that in Arkansas that restrict you from owning multiple points of the supply chain or only being able to own one?
No.
Okay, gotcha. Now, why is you've mentioned the number of cultivators, the number of dispensaries, the number of growers, What is that based on? Is that an arbitrary number? How did we come up with those numbers?
No, dating back to Prohibition days and the establishment of liquor stores throughout the state of Arkansas, I think a lot of time was spent looking at how to establish this program in Arkansas with a similar model based on need and population size, and any one, call it a congressional district or a zone, where the number of people and the concentration was, be it our border towns, northern Arkansas, southern Arkansas, or east and west, and how we put or address the exact number of needed stores based off of population into some, opportunities, economic strata. The Mississippi Delta, may not be selling as strong as Northwest Arkansas, the home of Walmart, while the southern border is fighting against people buying from Louisiana and or the western border, people buying from Oklahoma. So we tried to look at what was a meaningful amount of stores that could actually be implemented into the state, which is how they came to the derivative of 30. It's actually licensed for 38 stores, but 37 are open, and 8 grow facilities that could provide for those 37 stores. I find it really unique that when this was all put to play, the projections were that we would only have 20,000 patients and a very minimal revenue boom here, but it's been, quite the differ. We've got 90,000 patients and over $200 million in revenue. And so I think, the sky's the limit as long as we really take the time to look at how we, regulate this in a meaningful way, especially with our border states coming on board, like Missouri, like Oklahoma, Louisiana, Tennessee, those states that are touching Arkansas. It would behoove us to really take advantage at looking at how we can best fit being in the middle of all of these states around us.
What is the current status of the border states right now? I know Missouri and Louisiana have taken some initiative. Oklahoma's got some medical stuff. Texas, I don't think, has anything. Go into that a little bit.
Well, as you know, Oklahoma is one of the few, the Wild West, as we would call it, that you can openly grow and sell. So there are thousands of stores and many, many cultivation facilities, which has caused some really unique problems that I think the Oklahoma legislature will be taking up this session. Missouri, caught the golden goose and they legalized November of 2022. So you'll have a adult use program onboarding here this year in 2023 that you'll see an expansion of growers and an expansion of stores, rightfully so. Louisiana has a medical program, in Tennessee, while it's primarily concentrated on hemp, Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10 products, they have a small form of a program there. But I think in the coming years or months, you'll start to see them addressing the opportunity to legalize it there. I talked to district attorneys and many in the industry in Tennessee, and they were really favorable of Arkansas legalizing this because it would cut down on the border opportunities of people bringing in products to the state of Tennessee, and hopefully nudge the state legislature there to start moving in a direction to address how they would indeed legalize it from a hemp-based program for industrial hemp grow and the products that they're currently selling to a more expansive medical and or rec program. And then you've got Arkansas sitting right in the middle of all of that. So our border states are taking some aggressive initiatives. And some of our highest grossing stores lie right in the northern border of Arkansas, but it's getting a lot of feed from Missouri, and we're going to start losing those customers now that they have a full grown recreational program there.
You spoke about a hemp program. Is Arkansas doing anything with hemp at the moment?
Yes, it was, fortunate for those farmers that really addressed this, I think in 2021 in the legislative cycle, to mirror the Farm Bill and allow for industrial hemp and those products to be sold. So while it's not as strong as our medical cannabis industry, many patients and customers do go to your CBD stores or your C stores, your convenience stores, and are able to purchase Delta 8, Delta 9, products right now over the counter. And I think that will continue. There's not a large market. I think there was a robust push when the Farm Bill was first, expanded upon, that you saw hemp growers come about, but sourcing their products and being able to find retail stores that would sell it was a log jam. And I think you'll continue to see that, but there's a vibrant hemp-based market here in Arkansas right now.
What potential roadblocks do you see for investors or brands that are wanting to do business in Arkansas?
Well, I mentioned this earlier, the market structural issues are real, when it comes to supply and product and the productization, and that sales choke point. I think some of the regulatory limitations, it's a highly restrictive state, which is slow to respond. Plus, there's a lot of hostility, in large around party lines. While this tax revenue is doing a lot of unique good for cancer research accreditation and other opportunities, I think it drew a large pushback from party lines because of its tabooism here in the South. And I think you'll continue to see that as a roadblock. And then, from the technology standpoint, I think the information that is out there from the industry on technology and tracking has provided some roadblocks on how you track these products from seed to sale. And hopefully you'll start to see some of that either be relaxed or really more so focused on from a legislative oversight perspective on how we indeed find the best match for our industry size on tracking these products and testing these products before they actually get to the end user. So those are roadblocks that I think maybe persist in a lot of states. There's no uniform lab testing from the federal government down that would maybe help improve upon interstate commerce and how you get products from one state to the other. And then how that is tracked. There are 2 companies out here right now, and each state is mandated to work within that company. So when they contract with them. So I think those roadblocks hopefully will, start to relax a little bit in the future, but there's still a lot of work to be done. I think for investors out there, this is a good time to be looking at a state like Arkansas ahead of schedule for 2024 and identifying either their brands or mergers and acquisitions that they can get into, because there is some real opportunity here.
You spoke about technology, tracking technology, and a couple companies. Who are those companies, and who is Arkansas using currently?
Well, as you know, Matrix.
And are they successful? Are they doing, what's the quality look like there?
Sure. Well, as you know, Matrix and BioTrack are 2 of the key, and Matrix in many states, Colorado, Massachusetts, California. And BioTrack is indeed the tracking system here in Arkansas. But when talking to those in the industry, there are a handful that say that there is some work to still be done on training and making certain that the end users are able to use their tracking systems in a way and that, they're not going down in the middle of an ice storm or something comes up and they need some immediate training or technical assistance. So that is a real issue when you're talking about making certain that from the time these products are planted to the time they actually become anything from an edible to a tincture oil to a cream or a topical, that they are properly tracked. So, those are the 2 that I know of right now that galvanize many states, and BioTrack is who we have right now under contract with the state government in Arkansas.
And are there, regarding testing, are there multiple facilities? Can anybody test? What does that look like?
They are multiples. There are about 5 key testing facilities in the state of Arkansas. The one that most know is Steep Hill Labs, but therein lies opportunities there, I think, from the feds and the national level to really look and address, if we don't federally legalize this in the short term, that uniform testing across all states, because each state gets to identify how they want this tested, from the soil to the content. But uniform testing could, I think, alleviate some of the major problems that we're seeing or that we have seen in the past in this industry.
Which would be like inflating numbers of THC, et cetera, that kind of, or deflating the numbers of THC, either or.
Sure, you've seen some news about that, I'm sure, in your legal briefings. But that's so far-fetched and beyond the truth. But those types of opportunities can persist when somebody's mad at the other to bring up some litigation that may bring forth some influence of testing or whatnot. But I really believe that it's going to have to start at the federal level to really give some consideration that if we don't indeed deschedule this, how can we uniformly say that all states are going to look at testing parameters that must meet these criteria on a state-by-state basis?
What about security for the cultivators and growers and dispensaries? Are there any strange or odd things in Arkansas that companies looking to get into the market would want to know about?
No, I think security is a real button-up space. You have a lot of former law enforcement a lot of good technical experts that are securitizing this, from transporting it from any one cultivation facility to a dispensary. So I haven't heard and don't know of anything in my air traffic right now that has stated that security has become a big problem or issue in the industry market.
Well, Eddie, it was a pleasure talking to you today, and thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe to our magazine at the globalcannabistimes.com, and we will talk to you later.
Well, thank you so much, Tony, for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you.